beef jerky, and we're going to be using beef round. And I chose this especially because if you notice, there's no marbling, no fat. You don't want fat when you are making beef jerky. So they got a lot of fat on the bottom. We're going to trim that off. There is a special way to slice beef jerky. The way it is, if you notice, the grain is going this way. We're going to be slicing it cross grain, so when the final product is finished and you're chewing on it, you're not chewing on long strands and grains, you're chewing against the grain. It'll fall apart in your mouth. It'll be much more palatable. So now we got most of the fat trimmed off. We're going to cut it up, and again, the grain of the meat is going this way, the muscle. So we're going to cut it into slabs, and it doesn't matter how thin or thick we slice it now, later on it does. So we're going to take about 1/2-inch slices, just like that, and we're going to cut the whole thing right down. And if you notice the meat in the middle, there's not much marbling. It's mostly meat. There's very little fat. When we're done with it, the weight of the meat is about 1/3 less than when you start. If you start with 3 pounds of meat, you're going to end up with maybe 1 pound of jerky. Most of this is water. That is exactly what is being dehydrated. And by getting rid of the moisture, you're not letting bacteria grow, and that's why beef jerky can stay for a long time without spoiling. Plus you're sealing in the outside by drying it, so flies and other bugs can't get into the meat. So now that we got it all sliced up, I'll just take a slice and I'll show you. This is how we make the thin part. By slicing this thin, we can then get strips. And the strips, if I pull it apart now, you'll notice the meat, the grain goes this way. So by pulling it, even raw, it will break apart. If you went to do that when it was a full piece, you couldn't break it apart. It won't strand apart. And each piece will be pretty much uniform, strips about that big. And you just keep going the whole way. By making them uniform, they'll all be the same when they come out of the dehydrator. Some won't be a little bit overcooked or too dry, and some won't be too moist. So trying to keep them uniform is ideal. Now that we took the 2 rounds and we sliced them up, trying to make them as even as possible. Not that it makes a difference how much you do it, but when you're going to cook it, you want them to all cook the same. So they're all sliced against the grain, and we're going to marinate them now. It takes 2-3 days. I like to marinate it. There's ways of making it simpler. If you have a vacuum sealer and you take your marinade and your meat and put it together, you can do it overnight because it infuses into the meat. But if you just let it sit in the refrigerator in your bowl, take 2-3 days to really soak it in. And then we're going to put it into the dehydrator and go further with that. Marinade. So we're going to put a little bit of Worcestershire sauce in here. Just enough. I like minced garlic, just because I like it. Gives a little flavor because the flakes soak up the marinade, the Worcestershire sauce, and then stick to your meat, and you get that little taste on it. I also have sugar. There's a little sweetness to it. And then we mix it up.
The actual ingredients for these marinades depends entirely upon your own personal tastes. You can use a barbecue sauce or you can use a teriyaki sauce, but whatever you enjoy personally is what you should use for this.
You don't need a lot, you just need to mix the meat a lot into it. Okay, there's a couple of slices I've gotten of meat. Instead of slicing them real thin, I slice big slabs. I just particularly like that when you have a big piece of meat and you want to go, instead of just having a small snack, they dry out really, really nice. These have to be left in there a little bit longer than the rest of them. So we're going to take about half of our meat, put it in, a little bit more in this one, just divide it up. Just mush it up in there and get every bit of meat covered. Now there is a secret in when I marinate it, you don't want air to get to it. We want all the meat to be touching the marinade and soak in much better. And good. Nice and covered. We'll put that one away as well. This is my dehydrator. There's many different types. This one's a 10 rack. You can get both of those, which is around 3-4 pounds of meat in one sitting. You don't have to constantly do it. It takes different items, different lengths of time. Meats happen to be one of the shorter lengths, between 4 and 5 hours to dehydrate meat. Fruits, vegetables, 6 to 8 hours. When we take this off, it's been marinating for 3 days now. We take our meats and we lay them evenly. You don't want them to touch each other. So what I just do is lay them on top. And now you get them all, so none of them are touching each other. And then you slide it into your racks. And go on to the next. Alright, now that we have them all racked up, place it in there. It goes for about 3 to 5 hours, depending upon how thick you did it, about 145 degrees. And it goes, wherever you do it, make sure it's ventilated unless you really like it, because it's going to make the room have a very strong odor. Because you're drawing the water out of it, it's got to go somewhere. It's going to go in your room. So we turn it on. Now she's cooking. What it is actually doing is a fan in the back with a very slight heater. And it's taking that fan, is blowing that heat, the dry heat, over all the meat and coming out the sides. And that's what's evaporating the water. We'll let it cook, come back in a couple hours and see how we're doing. Okay, it's been cooking, it's nice and warm. The place smells really good. And we're going to see, just pull out a rack. And there we go. It's, if you notice, dry to the touch and dry all the way through. You get a plastic bag. You want to keep it from getting moisture absorbing into the meat, and that's what the plastic bag will do. The one thing I like about this, other than the type of beef jerky you buy in a store, there's no MSG. There's no artificial anything. It's meat, marinade, and goodness. And you know what you're getting because you made it yourself. And it's 1/10 of the price is what you bought. That all the meat that we have fill up about 6 or 8 of these bags. And it comes out to about, the meat itself was $25. So you're talking less than $5 a bag. Can't beat that. Enjoy.